Alright, so this is where we left off in the last time we were doing the rigging stuff of this. So if you remember last time, we have our heli up and out control. We have the prop spin, so we hit play, it spins. There's, Maya seems to be kind of glitchy in some of the stuff, but you know we'll fix that. I don't know why it's doing that. Grab those and hit the up arrow again. I'm gonna go to the graph editor just to double check. Um, yeah, some of these are actually yeah. Okay. So nothing's wrong with it, and Maya is just acting weird. Okay. So let's fix our expression out here because if you remember last time we talked about this expression is good, but it doesn't really allow us to ramp up to stuff. So at 4 or 3 or 2, it's basically just doing the math. So at 50, if I wanted to start slowing down, right now it's 5 times 50, so it would be 250, and I think we multiplied it times 10, yep, so 2,500. So it gives us not really a clean way to animate this thing. All right, so I'm gonna go back to this, and back to the expression, and we're gonna modify this expression. So right now it's just equal to the Poke controller prop spin times frame times 10. So what we want to do is add it to itself. Okay, so like every frame, it should just take what it already had and add to it. It's never gonna go backwards. So I want to basically take the heli pull dot rotate y plus the Poke controller prop spin, and then I can pretty much eliminate this frame part and just multiply it times 10. Okay, that way, whatever number we had here, like let's say this is 5, so we'll take the 5 and then we'll add it to this times 10. Okay, so if this is 5, 5 times 10 is 50, so then every frame is basically going 50 degrees. If this is 0, it's going to go 0 extra degrees every frame. Okay, so that's the big change we want to make there. Now we have to set something else up in a second, just so you can see it. Now we'll see if I hit play, nothing's going on. Set that to 2. It's not playing nicely. All right, let's go check that expression out. I may have typed something wrong. Heli pull, rotate y plus. Put some parentheses in here. All right, let me save this and reboot because Maya's just acting weird. Okay, so I just rebooted Maya, and you can see it's actually playing nicely. I haven't changed anything. Okay, so very easy. I can set this to a 5. It spins very fast. I set it to 3. It spins very fast. Medium. Set it to 1. Spins slower. I can even type in numbers like 0.25, and it's spinning. It's not spinning very fast. Or maybe, oops. I must have deleted it or something. There we go. Okay. So you can see that's obviously the ideal control. Now the problem with this is that every time I rewind this to the beginning, these are basically resetting themselves because this expression is never resetting back to 0. So every frame is just adding whatever the number is on top of that. So what I want to do is go to that expression again. And I'm just going to hit the return key. And I'm going to put an if statement here. So I'm going to put if parenthesis, frame is equal to 1. And then I put a curly bracket, heli pull dot rotate y equals 0. End parenthesis, or curly bracket, else, curly bracket. There we go. And let's hit edit, see if that works. It did. Okay. So the if statement here basically says if the frame is equal to 1. So it's checking to see what frame we're on. If we're on frame 1, it just resets that rotate y back to 0. Okay. Notice how there's 1 equal sign here and 2 equal signs there. So you have to make sure there's 2 in an if statement, and then when you're declaring something, then you would put a single one. These curly brackets lock in where the if part is. So if this is true, then do all the stuff between these two curly brackets. So we only have one statement here. It's a good habit to get into to use these curly brackets. I don't think we really need them in this, but again, it's a good habit to have them. And then if it's not true, which is the else, then run our expression. Okay. So now if we hit close and we rewind this, you'll see that it's always going to be equal to 0. It's not going to like start spinning around. Okay. So we can set this to 5. We hit the rewind key, hit play. Now it's going to go that fast. We rewind it, goes back to the beginning. We set this to 1, hit play. It's going to go slow. All right, so that's the optimal expression for this. Okay. So now we need to set up the arms. And that's pretty much it for this guy. We can have a main control for him to move around and stuff. We can set up other stuff for like this, these things here. If we wanted this to like move in and out, we could do that too. It's definitely something we could set up. Let's go to the rigging menu. We got to learn about something new. Okay, and these are called joints. So under create skeleton, or under skeleton, there's a create joint tool. And so what we want to do is, if I go to my side view, right view, top view, front view, whatever, I click, 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 you'll see that I have these joints here. And I go to the move tool and I can move them. And you'll see how I grab this top one and it moves all 3. I grab this one, it moves that one. I grab this one, it moves that one. If I go to my rotate, it'll rotate this joint. This joint will rotate both of those. This joint will rotate both of these. So if you look at this, it has shoulder, elbow, and wrist. It's essentially what we have for our character here. Okay. Now it's very important that as we do this, that it's set up to pivot from the exact spot we need to pivot from. So in this case, this guy here wants to pivot from essentially right at that spot. Okay. So I need to make sure that my pivot for this is about right there. For my shoulder, it needs to pivot from inside of this thing. I don't want this to pivot from like way over here. Okay, and this is just kind of like a test. I just kind of move my hit D and move that pivot tool in there. Hit D again. I wouldn't want to rotate it like this because it seems like it's a weird spot to rotate from. It seems like more likely it'd be spinning from here. So you see how it's now pivoting from that spot. Okay, so it just makes more sense of where these things pivot from. We got to take a little bit of time and care, especially for this kind of stuff. The palm isn't really going to move at all, so that's going to be locked into the arm. But this will obviously need to pivot and rotate. Same thing here. Okay. These should pivot from like down at that joint, and then they should spin like that. Okay. So what joints do is they allow us to use these things do is they allow us to use joints to create these little animations or to create these rigs. So it's very easy to set up different pivot points without having to move our geometry around, especially because like our fingers up here, you'll see that my rotation, it's not locked correctly. So it's like rotating weird right there and right here. Okay, so I essentially want to be able to rotate it like this, but that rotates all 3 of these. That's like way too much stuff. If I set up a joint, I can set it up so that it only rotates in the one direction that I need it to rotate. Okay. Now, if I click on this joint, I shift click this joint, I shift click this joint, shift click that joint, and then I rotate, you'll see that we get these, just like our Oh, I hate being sick. Rod, our stick animation. There we go. Stick animation, just like that. Okay, that's what essentially they were created with. All right, so I need to make sure that the pivots are on the right spot. The pivots are off, then this isn't going to work at all. So I go to create locator. Tell that I'm reaching the end of my lecture time. I can barely talk already. And these locators are just nothing objects. So I use these as placeholders. So I'm going to um, hold down shift. I have a locator selected. I'm going to hold down shift and click this rod. Under modify, snap align objects option box. I'm going to set midpoint, XYZ, last selected. And what it does, it puts that locator right there. Then I'm going to duplicate the locator, shift click the next one, and just hit G to redo that. Grab my locator, control D to duplicate, shift click that one, G to redo that. Grab locator, control D to duplicate, shift click this one, G to redo that. And I'm also going to scale these down. These are way too big. There we go. The size of them doesn't matter, it's just visually. Duplicate, shift click this, hit G, grab that, duplicate, shift click this, hit G. Okay, so that takes care of the hand. Now there's nothing bending from here, but we always want to have a locator out there. So I'm just going to move a locator to the tip. Okay, try to get centered as best you can. Grab this one, duplicate it, smooth it out. Grab this one, duplicate it, out. Okay, like I said, we don't need one for the wrist. I'm going to duplicate this, bring it back here. I'm going to switch to my top view just so I can get it lined up with where I need it to. Okay, so it should be pivoting from right around here. If you look at this piece of geometry, there's a couple lines here. There's one major line and then a couple lines there. So like I'm lining up with the center of that. Okay, that should be good. Duplicate this. This one I'm going to make a little bigger just because it's sticking inside a piece of geometry. I'll put it right there. Okay. So now I'm going to go to my outliner. I have all these locators here. I can just grab all of those, Control G to group them, Control D to duplicate them, and I just negative scale it in the X direction. And then I'll have my other side already set up. Okay, so that's just a huge time saver if you've already done it once. We can obviously just copy that information over. All right. So I'm going to hide my geometry, show polygons. And then you'll see I have the locators in the area here. I'm going to duplicate this one locator and just reset all of its stuff to 0. And just push it down to the middle-ish. Okay, so I'm going to have one main locator like right in the center, which is about there. All right, so I'm going to go to my joint tool. Now, if you need to, do a couple times until you get it right. Okay, so I'm going to hold down V. V will snap to points. So I click V, or hold V and click there, and it snaps it right to that point. Still holding V, click the next one. Still holding V, click the next one. Might get confusing here. We have 3 fingers, 1, 2, 3, so we have to do one at a time. Hold down V and click this one. Still holding V, click this one. Still holding V, click that one. My joints are huge, so I go to Display, Animation, Joint Size, and I pull this down. Every time you come to Maya, it's ridiculous when you have to do that. So now I want to start making joints from this spot again. Or, oops, I think I did miss one. Set undo. Okay. Okay, so even though I'm not moving my palm, I still need to create a joint right there. I'm going to duplicate one of my locators and just put it at the center of the palm-ish. Like that. Good. And then same thing, Control G, Control D, and then -1 in the X. And we have it on the other side. Now I'll hide my geometry again. It happens. Sometimes you forget stuff. Create joints. Hold down V. Click the middle. Still holding V. Just going through that chain. There you go. There's the palm. Finger, finger, finger. Okay, so now I need to get back to the palm. So I hit the up arrow on my keyboard until I get back to the palm. Then I hold V and go there. Hit the up arrow until I get back to the palm. Hold V. Cool. Alright, so that should be it. So now I can say show locators to hide my locators. And I want to name these. So this one is left underscore shoulder. Hit the down arrow. Oops, maybe not. There we go. Left underscore elbow. No, it doesn't let me hit the down arrow over there. Left underscore palm. And there's a reason I'm using the underscore instead of just camel casing it, because I want to separate the word left from the rest of it, so it'll make it easier to double click or click that and then change it. So this will be left index base, left index, oops, mid, left index tip. And I think this one here, I forgot to put the underscore. Yep. Okay. Left middle base, left middle, or mid. Call the other mid. You want to stay consistent with what you're naming these things. Left middle tip, left pinky base, left pinky mid, left pinky tip. Okay. So everything should be labeled. I like this to be a capital E. Little stuff doesn't make a huge difference, but. And then this one is my root. Okay. So now I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to go to skeleton mirror joints. And I wanted to replace or mirror my joints in the YZ direction. Okay, so if you look here, X is going left and right, so I want the one that doesn't have X in it. So I'm going to say search for left, replace with right. Should be good. Now I show all my stuff. Everything should line up perfectly, and it does. Okay. So now let's take a look and see how our stuff is working. So if I click on this joint here, and I rotate this just in the green, you'll see that that's the correct way it should be bending. Okay, so that's negative 49. So when I go to this one and I rotate it, we should get the same direction. Okay, negative here, negative here, negative in the Y. Sometimes you get different ones, so you just want to double check that. Negative, negative. Okay, everything's cool there. All right, so now it's time to connect everything. So we basically want to take pieces of geometry and connect them to stuff that that they would be linked to. So like this piece of geometry would move with this. So I grab this piece of geometry, I shift click this joint, and I hit P to parent it. And then I can test it out. If I grab the joint and just give it some rotate, you'll see that it rotates just like that. That works. Hit undo after every time. And I'm going to go to this piece of geometry and this piece of geometry, shift click the joint, and hit P for parent. This palm is also on there, so I grab that, shift click, oops, I grab the palm actually, and hit P on there. Remember, this isn't going to move from here. This is just going to be stationary with this, like locked in. So this rod and this finger go to the base. This rod and this finger go to this one. And I'm just clicking on the bone, which is the center part, and that'll select the one up it. This one doesn't get anything attached to it. It's just there for visual appearance. Okay, so rod, finger, shift click the joint, hit P. Oops. Rod, finger, shift click the joint, hit P. Okay. So now if I were to click on this, this, I'm clicking on those middle joints. This, this. Then I went to rotate. See how I can rotate my fingers in like a claw formation. Okay, if I rotate it this direction, it'll actually even go that way. Not really a use for it. Same thing here, not really use for it. Okay, if I grab this joint, I can rotate this. Now there is an issue with this one, where this piece itself will have to be manually animated. So that's, I mean, not manually animated, but controlled. All right, so we'll get to that eventually. So now we gotta do the same thing on this side. Grab that geometry, shift click this, hit P. This piece of geometry, this piece of geometry, the joint, hit P. This piece of geometry, this joint, hit P. And if you accidentally put on the wrong thing, just undo it and do it again. Watch the joints. If you see that they've disconnected, you've done something wrong. Okay, like if I click on this joint first, then click this and hit P, you'll see that the joint bone is gone. So I need to hit undo and then make sure I select it in the right order. It's always the geometry, the joint's last thing selected, and then you hit P. Okay, so when you grab the shoulders, like I just marquee through there, that should allow us to grab that stuff. And I see that we do have a little bit of an issue here because as this rotates, you'll see that that doesn't look very good. So I may need to grab that joint and hit D, and then just scoot it in some. Okay, now if I pay attention to this number here as I move this in, 3.724, move the other one in the same distance. Or not. It's different numbers. Close enough is good enough in this case. Oops. That's not going to work. Obviously, he has limitations. He can only move so far. I just want to make sure that they're optimal. The other thing I can do is shorten that piece of geometry. That might just be too long, too. I hit undo until I get these back to where they were. Yeah. I'm just going to shorten this arm. Just go to the vertices. Oops. Hide my joints. I'm just going to scale these in and then move this over. I'm just flattening these out, scooting it over. So now we don't have to worry about it. We get a lot more range of mobility here. Okay, like I said, always undo it. You should be back to this pose. All right, now for this root joint, everything else should be parent to that root joint. So I'm going to go to my outliner. Here's my Pokeball. I'm just going to middle drag this onto the root joint. Because now when I grab the root, everything goes with it. That's what we want. And realistically, the Poke controller should be, the root should be in there. So I middle drag it on a Poke controller. So now when I click this, it all goes with it. Okay. And then everything should still work. Our prop helicopter still works. Okay, nothing's changed there. Everything still functions the exact way it should function before we did any of that stuff. These two groups that are here, these are my locators. Don't need them anymore. Just toss them. All right. So now let's rig the hands here. So in order to move, let me switch to my side view again. All right, in order for us to move joints, we never actually want to grab them and move them because it'll stretch the joints out. So think of your own geometry, your own skin. Typically, we rotate stuff. So if this is the shoulder, you rotate the shoulder, you rotate the forearm. So this is called forward kinematics, meaning that we start at the very base, we rotate, then we go to the next one, and rotate, then we go to the next one and rotate, and so on. Okay. For something like the arm, there's other tools we could use. One of them is called an IK handle or an inverse kinematics. So this is forward kinematics, just grabbing and rotating. Inverse kinematics, I can grab that joint, grab that joint, and it creates a handle, IK handle. And then I can just move the IK handle, and it'll move the joints exactly where I want them to go. This is like exactly what we need, okay? I'm going to go to skeleton IK handle. Rotate plane solver. That's the default, okay. And all I have to do is just marquee this joint at the shoulder, and then find the one for the palm and marquee that one. Okay. So now if I move this, you'll see that the hand actually does move. Now where this would break is if I moved it up or down. Okay, because as I move it up or down, actually it's not breaking this time. Push it back. Never mind. Just had him doing him back where he was. No, he's good. All right, cool. Oops, I accidentally deleted it, so I'll just re-add it. Okay, so now he's back in. All right, now IK handles, we want to be able to reset all of our stuff. We can't reset this because it's at numbers here, and if we freeze transform, it'll freak out. So we have to group it. So I Control G to group it. So now all these are zeroed out. My pivot is way over here though, so I need to hit D, and then I'm going to zoom in to the palm, hold down V and middle mouse button drag until this snaps right to the wrist. Okay, hit D again. So now I have my left hand control. It's called left hand IK. So now when I move this, you'll see that the left hand moves the way that it should be moving. Okay? And then if I need to reset it, I can just reset all these to 0 and it goes back to right where he starts. Okay, so do the same thing on the other side. Okay, group it, right, and okay. Hit D to get to the pivot. Hold down V. Oops. Snap it right to the joint. All right, cool. So now, so I don't accidentally select these, I'm going to hide it eventually. I just need to create my controllers for the hands first. So I'm going to create just a circle. I'm going to zoom in on the hand, hold down, make sure I'm on the move tool, hold down V, snap this over here. Rotate 90 degrees. Oops, fill this in. What's left and controller. I will group it, duplicate it, negative scale on the X, grab circle, right hand controller. Okay, now I'm going to take both of these circles, shift click this line, this curve on the bottom, and just hit P to parent it. So now when I grab this, I'm going to grab everything and move it. Okay. Now the curves are not attached to the keys are not attached to the curves yet, which we'll do in a second. I have to make sure this is on here first because I need to grab these and then freeze their transforms. But I need to do it after I've done just what I did. So modify, freeze transform. Now I can go to my outliner. Here's my left hand IK group. Okay, so I'm just going to drop the left hand IK group in the left hand controller. Middle drag the right hand IK group into the right hand controller. So now when I grab this and move, everything moves with it. And then I can grab this hand and move that hand around. Grab this hand, move that hand around. Okay. Now I can hide the IKs. So I grab these two and I just hit Control H and they're gone. Alright, so let's try this out and see what we can do as far as animation wise in this hand. So let's go to, we're not going to scale any of these, so I can just right click and hide those. If I want to change the visibility, so I'll hide that. I'm going to go to add attribute. I wonder if I can do both these at the same time. Okay, so underscores first. And cool, it did it for both. So then we're going to have index curl. Minimum is -5, +10, default 0. Middle curl, -5, 10, 0. Pinky curl, 5, 10, 0. Okay, and then let's say stretch. -10, +10. Now the reason I did -5 and 10 on the other ones, because there's probably a little movement in the negative area when you do a finger curl. So it'll be like backwards curling will be -10 or -5. +10 will be the forward curl. And then with these, the stretch could go this way or that way. Alright, so that should be good. So we have 4 different attributes here on each one. So start here. We do have to do these ones one at a time. So I'm going to go to my window, animation editors. We're going to animation, key, set driven key somewhere inside here. There's another spot for it. There it is, set driven key set. Cool. So my driver is this. This is what's controlling it. My driven is going to be these fingers here. Okay. All right, so it's obviously not going to be all of them at the same time because certain ones are going to do certain things. So the first one will be index curl. So I just need my index fingers. And for my rotates, it's going to be just the Y direction. Okay, so that's all I need is the rotate Y. So I say when index curl is at 0, that's where I want you to be. Key it. when index kernel is at -5. Spin backwards a little bit. I'm gonna grab them individually too. Spin it back a little more. Okay. And then when index kernel is at 10, crank this in. It's always better to go a little bit further than you need than not far enough. Okay, so now if we check this out, all right, so now do the middle. Make sure we have everything selected, middle, middle. Key it, okay, set this to -5. Key it, set this to +10. Key it. Okay, now we'll do the pinky. These don't take very long to do. It's the hardest thing is just understanding what we're trying to do. Pinky curl, pinkies, key. And this is at -5. I'll have to put that in. Put it backwards. And when it's at +10, okay. So now we grab all three of these, middle drag in here. Okay, now it'd be rare to ever do that, right? So we may have some times where we just need a little bit of movement here or there or wherever. But for the most part, that should work. Okay, so he's grabbing something, maybe his hand would look like that. Okay. Or he's drinking a spot of tea. Pinky extended. Okay, so then we can do stretch. So let's go to stretch. This will be all of them, and it'll be their Z direction. Okay, so at 0, I set a key. At -10, these two will be stretched a bit further out this way. Now, it's not really possible because of the hinge, but we'll just pretend it is. So we'll set a key on those. I didn't really move the middle one, didn't need to. We'll go to +10. We'll key that. Okay, so now we do have those extra controls. Now, we'd have to do the same thing on this side, so it's just a matter of taking those few minutes and doing that. So I'm not going to talk because I just did it. Rewind if you need to hear me talk again, but I'm just going to do this for this hand. Okay, so now they're both done. So what I like to do is test them out. And because they have the same exact names, I can grab both of these at the same time and middle drag. You'll see we get mirroring results. Perfect. Okay, so that's the hand. So now we can grab, just so you can see, we can grab this and move it. Right? Now we have to get a way to tuck this in. So we have to be able to curl the fingers in um, and basically put this thing away. So part of that's going to be done with the stretch, shrinking these in, curling all the fingers like this. And you'll see now they don't overlap, which is perfect. And then the other part of it is going to be animating it going like this. And then pushing this in. Now we can't just grab this and push it in. I need to actually grab the elbow or the shoulder joint and the circle and move both of those in. Now when I do that though, I need to have a way to control that better. So I'm going to have another control on each of these called shoulder in. Reset these to 0. And we'll just do 0 and 10. So now the controlled objects are going to be these shoulders here. So we'll just do one at a time. So the driver, driven is the shoulder. The driver is the curve. Shoulder in. Now we're also going to have this thing being controlled too. So I'm going to grab both of these actually. A cap in this. The shoulder will be first. So we'll set that up. And the shoulders movement. Um, It looks like we're going to have basically the translates and rotates of this. So I just have to grab all those. Okay, so right now, shoulder in's at 0, so we'll just set this. We'll set this to 10. And I'm basically just going to pull this in. Just a bit like that. I'll have to tweak it after, but that'll be good enough for now. And we'll say key. So now, okay. So now what I want to do is take this left-hand controller. There's a couple ways I can do it. I'm just debating. Um, I really want to set drivens on these things here and these, because then that will cause some issues. So I'm just going to manually just go through and rotate and stretch in and curl the fingers in. And then I'm going to put this in like this, and then just put the hand in where I think it should go. Like that. And then from here, I'll be able to see exactly where this is hitting, if it's hitting it in the right spot. So the shoulder and the arm should be close together like this. You can see that it's actually not hitting it in the right spot. So this should actually probably be over like this, and then my shoulder should probably be over like that more. And both of these should probably be in even more. It's hard to see. You just gotta do your best to get in there. Okay, so something like that. All right, so now we'll just set a key on that again. Okay, because that just resets where he's located at. Okay, I was doing something weird there. That's not a big deal. Now I can do the cap. And I'm going to do this one backwards. So I'm going to say locator elbow cap, shoulder in when this is at 10. I guess I gotta reset it. I'm going to set this to 0. And then the elbow caps rotate. So I'm going to grab all 3 of them and just hit key. And then when the shoulder's in, that, then the elbow cap. And switch in different views because you want to see it from different angles. Okay, that should be good. I'll hit key on there. Now I need to also go back to my shoulder because my shoulder is now not lined up right. So I can go back to my shoulder. I'll also grab the circle. Those kind of go hand in hand. There we go. So now I hit key on there. Okay. So all right. So now I have my shoulder in, which is going to do that. As it's doing that, you'll see that the cap moves too, right? So it lines up. And then it'd just be a matter of this getting in here to the right position. You can see how precise this has to be in order for this to work correctly. Let me take this and just adjust that again. And this isn't something that we'll be doing like a whole lot. He's just going to be, for this one-off shot. The cap will be on, then his arms will pop out. So actually, the animation will be a bit smoother looking. Let's key that again. Okay, definitely a bit confusing if you've never done that before, but it'll turn out cool once we're all done. All right. And then if we grab this, just to double check, we always want to make sure everything's still moving correctly. Okay. Now let's do the other side. So this is our driver. This and this is our driven. So our right shoulder is going to be all these controlled. Okay, so right now it's at 0. Yep. We'll set this to 10. We'll put it what we want it to look like at 10. So I'm just doing this just so I can visualize it. Essentially, it's going to be like this. Grab that joint. There it is. I'm going to set a key right there. And again, we'll have to adjust it. There's the right elbow. Reset that to 0. Elbow rotates. Set a key. Put that back to 10. And there's other ways that we could have done this too. Grouping definitely would help. Grouping more groups together would allow it so that we didn't have this like weird situation where you just have one controller, they just pull it out and push it back in. But it's not always um, easy to do that, especially if you're like your first one. So grab the circle. Grab the shoulder. And then just grab that cap. Have it rotates. Just tweak it back into position. Alright, so that should be pretty good. So now we have this kind of set up here. So let me save this. Oops. Now remember, like I said, you could take these two things here if you wanted to create a controller for that. You could just put these two together in a group. So just Control G to group them. You can hit D to move the pivot up here a little bit further. And I could create a control that would just be this. And I would typically put that right on here. I would just go to that and add that animation factor in there. Lens out. What's going on here? 0, 10, 0. Okay, so then I could go to my set driven, my driver, my driven, and lens out is going to be controlling translate Z. Yep. Key it at 0, crank it up to 10, pull it out. How far you think you might need to go? There we go. So now we got a control for that. All right. Now another thing, if we don't want this thing to pivot, like if we rotated this, it rotates from here. I can hit D and move the pivot up to the center of this guy, which is typically what I want to do when I animate something like this. And I'll switch to the front view so I can get it lined up pretty close to that. Yep, should be good. So now you'll see that this is where it's spinning around from. Okay, so our rigging is done. I'm just going to hit save again. So the last step in this is now just, not the last step, but the next step is just animating it. So make a little scene and then create a little animation for it. So it can be just something as simple as the ball sitting on the ground. Notice how the ground is huge, it's not tiny. Got my controller, there it is. Okay, I'm going to, oops. For my animation, I'm going to have them roll in. it'll be off screen like this. I hit set a key on my rotates. Should set a key on all this stuff. I'll go up to, I don't know, 3 seconds. Move them into frame. Rotate them around. 1080. Here we go. So it rotates into frame. And then his arms will pop out. So now I need to go grab those circles. And to make your life a little bit easier, I'm not going to be grabbing a geometry. So if I just go to up here to show joints, I'm not going to select any joints, so I can turn those off. And then select geometry, turn that off. So now when I mark key, I'm only going to be grabbing the stuff that I need. So I grab this, and I grab that. And those are the hands. And so what I'm going to do is animate the shoulders going out. So I key both of those. I'm also going to need to key the translates for my controls. I'm going to have translates and I shouldn't need the rotates, just translates. Okay, we'll go up to, let's say, 140. Those are out. And then I'll grab these individually. I'm just trying to line it up so that it looks like it's coming out of there. Like that. Okay. You see how the animation of this is obviously a lot easier than the rigging part of it. Just making sure it's on the correct side. Like that. Set a key for that. Set a key for that. Oops. I didn't set the other side. Back out. Okay, now if there is some intersection here like this, no big deal. I just go in here and I just move this. It's just a matter of adjusting the interpolation of the two. Like obviously that one comes out really weird. Okay, so I go to the extreme and then I'm just kind of adjusting. Okay, look to the side. Yep, that one did the same thing. It's really weird transition. This is the kind of stuff that just comes up as you're animating. And the more time you spend with a rig, the less these issues actually come up because you can just, if I rigged this so that it didn't do this kind of thing, it obviously wouldn't do this kind of thing. So I have a keyframe there, but it's like way far off, obviously. Oh, I'm only setting one keyframe here. I forgot to set all these. Let me wipe these out in the middle. Hold shift, middle drag, and delete. Just sometimes it's easier to go back and correct something. Like right there. Move that in. The other side played a little nicer. Let's double check the other side. There we go. A little bit of a waver to it. I don't think it'll be too noticeable once we animate it, or once we have the full thing. A couple more frames here. So now I can just pull this out. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to that 140. Set my keyframes for these ones. Okay. Go up to, let's say, 190. Pull them forward. Should set all the keyframes. Alright, so I'm actually going to go like maybe negative. And I'll come up and set them all to 0. Okay. Good. And then I want the helicopter thing to move to. Like these things are coming out. And then once those are done, then I can animate this. Oops, not yet. I'll animate my iris, or my lens. I'll animate the lens first. At the same time as the iris. That would be cool. So here. I'm just kind of giving it some random movement. There we go. Same thing, lens out. Just having it come out and just go bloop, that's kind of weird. Let's go to the graph editor. Lens out. Nothing happens here, so I can just delete this. That way it helps me kind of focus on what's going on there. And I'm going to go to my insert key and just middle click. And that way I can take these and just kind of offset them. And then what that's going to do is just give this a little bit better feel to it. Maybe too fast. Yep. Good jackhammer. Offset. Use the dope sheet too. There we go. That's cool. Let's go to iris. Do the same thing. Let's see our frames. Oops. Good. So it's just some organic movement happening in there. And then after all this is set, then the helicopter is going to come out. And then as he's picking up speed, that's when he starts moving. It's kind of like the drone assignment. The Pokeball, though. Kind of wobble. I think for his big finale, he'll just fly right at the camera. Okay, now I can take a look and see. Save this. There we go. Okay. And then, obviously, these hands shouldn't just stay static the entire time. So, go to my graph editor. No, I'll just move them in here, whatever. Go there and give them a little bit of movement. It needs to be rotated some too. That's cool. Okay. A couple more things I could play with just to, not have anything look too symmetrical is just going to my dope sheet with my two hand controls. I'm just giving them a little bit of offset. They don't match perfectly, especially when they come out. And then opening up the index curl and just offsetting that, and the middle curl, and the pinky curl. And I think I want each one of those hands. Graph editor. I want them to kind of curl up at the end, like at least partly. I think would look better. So I'm just adding in some curls, just to kind of give the fingers a little bit more life, just like we did the hands. So I'm just moving up these curves. That's all I'm doing. Okay, nothing crazy, just subtle movements. Even delete a key. You see the hands actually kind of move around a little bit more now. Cool. All right. So save this again. The next step is texturing. If you haven't textured your stuff already, so you can add some colors to it. You don't have to be anything crazy, just basic colors. Turn my geometry selection back on. Add some lights. Some of these ones are pretty nice. If you just import this. You get some decent lighting right off of that. And then you can always add a light on top of it just to kind of enhance it some more. Show locators. I don't know why, but some of these are classified as locators. Obviously, my background was classified as a locator. Need to add a little bit more punch to my light there. Make the exposure up to 4. A bit better. Actually see it now at least. Make sure you have shadows. We do. Okay. And then for the materials here, like I said, this doesn't have to be anything crazy. It just has to, look nice. And then there's, just so you can see it, there's 2 pieces of glass here. Make sure you grab both pieces of glass. Then you go to the glass. And remember, nothing distracting, nothing crazy. I'm going to assign the same black material insides of this. I don't want that to show too much. And then this will get the same green. And this will get the same blue. Now on here, because these things are all grouped together, it's fine to grab the top one and then just assign the blue. Right? And then I can grab the individual ones and assign something else to them. So like this pole, I want to be black. I'll assign the black. And I'll grab this and assign the blue. And then I can just grab these pieces and assign the, I guess, light red. Assign the light red on this one also. Now there are little bits of those little rods that are in here, so don't forget those guys. Those are usually good if you give them a complementary color. So if you give it like the blue, it'll kind of pop a little bit better. Yeah, I think that's it. Oops, I forgot the iris. We go inside. Grab the iris pieces. All right, and then new thing on this one, let me save render settings, features, um, motion blur. So our helicopter propeller spins right there. In order to really see it spinning, we put motion blur on. And then we'll see motion blur. So definitely turn out a lot nicer than otherwise. Okay, so that should finish up this assignment. Um, Remember, the biggest thing is to make sure that the rig and the animation are good. Um, and then they're obviously the textures, they're visible, so you can see all your stuff, make sure that everything works correctly. Let me set up my camera too while I'm here. Set this to 25. We go to where the helicopter's at like that. And I'll just grab those keyframes. I'm just going to back the camera up a little bit. Sometimes just having this little slow movement on the camera can be very effective. We get a little bit too close to that bottom there. Let me go to view, camera settings, vertical. Okay, we got some room. Okay, and now he goes up like that. So I want the camera to kind of follow him up. So I'm going to set another key here. And at this point, then we'll kind of shoot upwards. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so I just go through and render that out. Put it in After Effects, make a movie. Cool. Name.number.extension. I have 350 frames here. Everyone's going to be different, so don't use my specific number of frames. All right, awesome. So I'm going to render that out, and hopefully I'll have that to show next class.